What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming first-party lineup for the Nintendo Switch 1 and Nintendo Switch 2, and even dip into next year, because at the most recent Nintendo Direct there was a ton of games announced, and I want to give my opinion on some of those games and kind of detail what we're going to be getting, because this is a stacked lineup of exclusives and cross-generation games. So let's go ahead and jump right into it here. We're going to start off with Super Mario Galaxy 1 plus 2. That is coming out on October 2nd, or you can just get them individually. There was definitely some controversy with this game, not because it's not awesome, because obviously Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are some of the best games of all time, but because of the price of the games. Both of these are going to be $40 a piece, or if you buy them together, you can get it for $70. Now, there was some confusion with the games because it's a Nintendo Switch 1 physical game. You can play it at 1080p 60 on the Nintendo Switch 1. However, there's also a free upgrade to 4K 60 FPS on the Nintendo Switch 2. It does come with the extra storybook pages and some other things as well. But I still don't think it should be $70. I think this should be around $50, $60 if you're stretching it, $30 per a game. But I do think that it should be a bit cheaper, so I'm kind of more on that side. $40 a piece for these games seems a bit much considering how old that they are. But once again, it's up to you if you want to pick them up or not. I love Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. I have not played Super Mario Galaxy 2 in probably a decade plus, so I'll be picking up the bundle with this thing, doing the free upgrade overall. All right, next up, let's talk about Pokemon Legends ZA, October 16th. Plus, we have some extra paid DLC that they announced for it as well, but they didn't really show off much of it. I'm just excited for the base game overall, October 16th, but there still seems to be some confusion on if this is a mainline game or not, and this is something that the Pokemon Company has stated multiple times. Joe Merrick of Cerebri fame, he's also talked about it as well, and this is a mainline game overall. It is a canon game. The stuff that happens in this game is based off of stuff that's from the actual Pokemon series, and it is counted as a mainline series game. So just keep that in mind. It's an action RPG, first full action RPG the Pokemon Company has done with a mainline Pokemon game, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to it. If you're getting the game on the Nintendo Switch 2, you're essentially getting double the frame rate overall compared to the Nintendo Switch 1. It's definitely going to be 30 FPS on that system. With Switch 2, you get 60 FPS, and the resolution looks significantly better as well. All right, let's talk about the next game up here. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment on November 6th. We finally got a release date for this game, and I'm very excited for it. It looks awesome, and it seems like it's going to be packed full of content. Nintendo did announce the file size for this game, and it's coming in at over 44 gigabytes, almost 45 gigabytes for this. They showed off some more of the gameplay, some more of the tag team sync attacks that you have. They showed off some new characters as well, the Zonai devices that you can use. It looks beautiful. They had it running at 60 FPS. It looks better graphically from when we first saw it as well. So I don't think it's going to just be a repeat of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity from a game structure standpoint. Now, the basis of what you do in the game is still the same. You're just going to be beating up a bunch of different people when it comes to the map, but of course you're talking about the imprisoning war, you're talking about what happened back then, and you've got some other segments of story and walking and talking with the King Rauru and Sonya. So I do think that it is going to be a bit different. They showed some constructs in there as well, and the box art is banging too. So some people felt that this game could slip to next year, but nope, it's coming November 6th, and that's awesome because they're pairing it up with another game in November, and that is Kirby Air Riders, which we already knew about on November 20th. The game looks awesome, looks fun, looks like it's fast and frantic, and of course, Masahiro Sakurai is back with another Kirby Air Riders Direct coming through before the launch of the game, so that should be fun to see. Now, I do have a little bit of a side note here. This isn't a Nintendo first-party game, but I wanted to talk about it because it's coming sooner than maybe I would have thought as well, and that's Hades 2. That's going to be on September 25th for the digital version of the game. That's $30. But Nintendo seems to be publishing the physical version of the game on November 20th. So if you want it just digital, you can pick it up on September 25th. If you want a physical, actual on-cart, no game key card, but on-cart copy of the game for $50, you'll be able to get that on November 20th. And it does offer, obviously on all versions, digital and physical, 120 FPS on the Nintendo Switch 2 in docked mode. There's also a free upgrade from Switch 1 to Switch 2, and there's also PC/Switch cross saves. So if you want to play it on PC, then move it over to your Switch or your Switch 2, you can do that. Free upgrade, 120 FPS on the Nintendo Switch 2 docked. So this is going to be a great indie title to play on the Nintendo Switch 2, or if you want to play it on PC, whatever the case is. So I really like that Hades 2 is coming out sooner than I thought. I'll probably pick up the digital version, then pick up the physical version as well, because I loved Hades 1, and Hades 2 looks like more of the same, but better in many different regards as they've refined that mechanic that they built up. So looking forward to that. All right, next up, let's talk about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. On December 4th, we finally got a release date for this game, and just like I predicted, it would make it for 2025, as there were others that were saying that it could slip to 2026. So this was interesting because they showed off a lot of cool things in this, like for example, Samus and a freaking motorcycle, the Samus cycle overall. But some people didn't like the fact that they were doing that, maybe because the desert area looked a bit empty and there was different types of enemies to attack. It didn't seem like Metroid Prime, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Metroid Prime has been gone for quite some time. They wanted to try something new. Maybe it's good, but I'm just looking forward to the game. I'm going to play it. Plus, they showed all the classic Metroid Prime 4, or Metroid Prime gameplay, I should say, in that trailer. So I think it's going to be great. It's on December 4th. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. The game graphically looks awesome when it comes to all the different environments that they showed. Looks like there's going to be a bunch of cool set pieces and stuff to do. Samus has her new suit in addition to some great psychic powers as well. So Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, December 4th, looking good. All right, let's get into some stuff for 2026 as well, because that was all packed. All those games that I just talked about, those are all packed between now and at this point to the next 3 months or so, October, November, December. So Nintendo's packing multiple months full of games. But now let's move over to 2026, where they've got some stuff lined up for the first half as well. So Mario Tennis Fever, that's coming out on February 12th, 2026. This game looks interesting because it's got 38 playable characters. That is the biggest when it comes to the roster ever in Mario Tennis history. Plus, it's got a bunch of new Fever rackets that do all sorts of types of zany different things like you would expect in a Mario Tennis game. There's over 30 rackets, so there's a lot of different combinations to mix and match. They've got some new skills as well, like sliding and different defensive maneuvers, in addition to having a whole brand new single player campaign where you can turn into babies and then you have to learn your skills of playing tennis back up and become adults again. So that's also interesting. It's like Dragon Ball Daima or something like that. There's also a bunch of different game modes as well, like trial towers and different types of skills and things that you can do there. So it looks like it's going to be a good entry into the Mario Tennis franchise here, especially with those 38 characters and a full single player campaign. All right, next up is Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, Spring 2026, and I think that this game is going to be better than what people initially are saying. Overall, it looks just kind of cutesy and everything, but I love the art style. It really seems like they're going back to what the game's look was on the Super Nintendo. For those who don't know, I love Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. That's one of my favorite games of all time, and that is the same type of style, but just obviously with technology advanced many generations at this point. So to me, I was so sick and tired of the woolly and the yarn and all that. I just didn't like that, and I was hoping that they would go back to a style that was more reminiscent of the Super Nintendo game, and it definitely seems like they're doing that with Yoshi, and I think like the 64 game as well. So this is awesome. Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, I'm looking forward to it. I'm just hoping that the game is a bit harder than maybe what they've shown. They haven't really shown too much, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a bunch of skills and challenges and things that you can do as well. But I like the fact that they're moving away from the woolly and the yarn and all that type of stuff. So very excited for this one. I think it's going to be a great 2D Yoshi experience. All right, next up is Super Mario Bros. Wonder Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. That is spring 2026, and it's going to be adding a bunch of content. They have this whole multiplayer mode that they've added in that has a bunch of different mini games and battle modes and different stuff that you can do, like tag and all that. It's actually pretty interesting. So if you enjoyed the multiplayer content with your family or friends, or even just like online with other people or whatever the case is, you're going to be able to get a huge expansion to the multiplayer of that, because in the original Super Mario Bros. Wonder, they didn't really have modes like this. So this is a completely new thing. They're not expanding on anything that was already in the game. They're making completely new multiplayer modes for this game. So maybe maybe they found out that there was a lot of people who enjoyed the multiplayer but wish there was more things to do in it when it comes to the local and online. So it looks like they're going to be adding that. Plus, they've added in single player content as well, and we'll see how substantial that is or not. But it does seem like there's going to be a lot to talk about that because they didn't want to get into it too much. Spoilers, and it's a bit too soon as the game is not till spring 2026. So I'm looking forward to that. I loved Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I thought it was fantastic. So I think that this one's going to be really good to play some of that new content in the game. All right, next up would probably be the highlights of the Nintendo Direct for me, because you guys know me, I'm a Fire Emblem fan, and that is of course Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave that is coming out 2026. Fire Emblem games usually come out in the first half of the year, so keep that in mind. So it does seem like it's probably going to be a first half game, maybe even summer or so. Most of the time Fire Emblem games do not come out at the end of the year, but I already did a analysis of the first trailer of the game, and I found many different ties and different things. This is definitely a follow-up or a prequel or a something cool to Fire Emblem Three Houses. You have Sodis at the end of there, and she's definitely grown up a bit. You have characters that potentially could be the bloodline or lineage of the characters from Fire Emblem Three Houses with Edelgard, Claude, and Dimitri. There's a number of different things that tie back to this overall. Now, the style of the game, people are talking about it looks like Fire Emblem Engage. Some people are saying that it's not quite that. I think it's a little bit of a mix between Three Houses and Engage overall. If you look at the UI and fonts and everything, that's definitely more like Fire Emblem Three Houses. If you look at the character models, some could say, okay, this kind of looks more like Engage, but to me, it's a little bit of a mix. Engage and Fire Emblem Three Houses use different engines, so keep that in mind. Engage uses the Unity engine. Fire Emblem Three Houses uses Koei Tecmo's Warriors engine. So we're going to have to wait and see exactly what's happening there with the game. But either way, it doesn't really matter. This is the next big new Fire Emblem game. I didn't consider Fire Emblem Engage some type of new, real, true blue mainline game. It seemed like it was more of an anniversary title, which they might count it as a main game to them or anything like that. But it wasn't the same type of style that you would see in like Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem Fates, Fire Emblem Three Houses, games like that, or like Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. It just wasn't that overall from the story, setup, plot, characters, and all of that. But with this game, you actually get that real grounded Fire Emblem experience that's going to have those twisting, weaving fates and different stuff that happens. And I love the wordplay on Fortune's Weave, because you're going to be competing, and whoever wins is going to get a wish, anything that they want. So fortune of what you're going to win, and the weave of different characters that are going to intertwine to that fortune. So this is going to be spectacular. I can already tell. I love Fire Emblem Three Houses. I'm a big fan of Engage. Obviously, I love the old school Fire Emblem games too. So this one's going to be the next great in the line, and it's 2026. All right, next up, we got Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, and they gave a spring 2026 release window for this game. If you're into Tomodachi Life, you're going to get more Tomodachi Life, and it looks like it's even going to be bigger and better than what it was before. So shout outs to the Tomodachi Lifers out there. Now, Nintendo didn't update this next game at the most recent Nintendo Direct, but I wanted to talk about it, and that's Rhythm Heaven. That's also coming out in 2026, but we don't know when overall, and that's more of the AA type of game, or Nintendo's version of indie style type of game. Rhythm Heaven is a really cool, interesting, and fun type of little game to play. I remember playing it back on the Nintendo DS and thinking that it was pretty dope, but never really played a lot of the other games or anything. But yeah, Rhythm Heaven will probably get an update at the next Nintendo Direct, or maybe they'll just have a random Twitter post like they do sometimes, or maybe even Nintendo Today, because Nintendo did talk about the Nintendo Today app in the Nintendo Direct. So I think that Rhythm Heaven could be a candidate for a Nintendo Today update, randomly saying, hey, look at this new trailer, or hey, look at this new thing, or maybe we got a release window or a release date for Rhythm Heaven in 2026. So yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool. Now, another crazy thing that Nintendo showed at this Direct was Virtual Boy Nintendo Classics. That is coming out on February 17th, 2026, and it's going to be exclusively for Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack members, but it will be available for the Nintendo Switch 1 or the Nintendo Switch 2, so keep that in mind. And essentially what's going on here is that they're going to be making or more like replicating the actual Virtual Boy experience. So the Virtual Boy, this weird stand looking goggles 3D thing that was released in the 90s that I hated when I played it once because it looked weird and it was all red. I wanted color. Overall, they're going to be recreating that with $100 stand that you need to actually play it. So you take your Nintendo Switch 1 or 2, you put it inside the casing that it does have, and then you play it that type of way. And yeah, that's kind of crazy. Maybe they're going to release like an actual Virtual Boy style controller overall, or maybe you're just going to use your Pro controller, whatever you have. There'll probably be multiple options with that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how people react to this. There's also going to be a $25 cardboard setup thing, so if you don't want to spend the $100, you can spend $25 and kind of hold it up almost like Nintendo VR Labo thing that they did. So there's also going to be that. And this was very crazy to see some of the reactions online with what people had to say. And yeah, some people were saying, oh man, maybe the price is a bit too high with that. And I can understand completely with it. But I mean, if you're to go out and try to buy a Virtual Boy system, you're spending hundreds of dollars more overall when it comes to getting that and even getting the games and all of that. Apparently there's going to be about 14 games that they showed off there that are going to be released over time with it. So if you're into that, maybe it's something. I'll probably just try it out for novelty's sake, but I don't think I'm going to be sticking my head into a red black type of thing on my eyes. I'm sorry, I'm just not so sure about that, but I think that it's a pretty kind of cool, interesting, novel type of thing for hardcore Nintendo fans that want to replicate the experience. Or if you're somebody who's never experienced it and have only seen people talk about it or documentaries, well, here's your chance to get something like that in the future. So I can't wait to see the reactions when it actually comes out next year. Now let's get into what wasn't talked about at this Nintendo Direct and my own personal grade for it. So overall, we did not get anything when it comes to the next big 3D Mario game. I think that Nintendo is set with Donkey Kong for this year. I think they want to really push Donkey Kong to sell as much as it can throughout the holiday. And I think that next year we'll probably get that next big 3D Mario discussion and leaks and rumors and eventual reveal at some point. I do feel that the Mario team is working on that. I think they worked on Donkey Kong Bonanza first and then worked on the next big 3D Mario after that in the 8 years since the release of Super Mario Odyssey. I think they have 2 games that they've been cooking up, but they're really just clearing out for Donkey Kong this year. And then next year they'll talk about what's happening with the next big 3D Mario game. There was no Monolith Soft there at all, and there wasn't any updates for a lot of the Nintendo Switch 1 games that people were looking forward to getting updates, like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 or like Astral Chain or things like that. So maybe that's going to be later down the line. They revealed Fire Emblem for this Direct, so I'm guessing that the next Nintendo Direct they should have, or maybe they could have, more like I should say could have something from Monolith Soft and their next game. And I actually kind of predicted that because I said that most of the time Monolith Soft games are announced at the beginning of the year. Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U, the original, beginning of the year. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, beginning of the year. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, beginning of the year. There's only been one Xenoblade game in recent history, and that was Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition that was announced at the end of the year. So most of the time, beginning of the year. So I expect there to potentially be some patches or upgrades, and of course the next big Monolith Soft game announced maybe at the next big Nintendo Direct in spring, because we usually get a Nintendo Direct within like February, March, April, sometime in that time frame. So maybe we get something then. But yes, that wasn't there as well. Now there's probably some other games that people were maybe looking forward to or not that could be there. People talked about Microsoft and Sony games, Halo and Gears, and I was like, guys, this is a Nintendo Direct. Don't ever expect those. If they show up, that's cool, but don't ever expect those. So I wasn't expecting anything like that. But let's get into my overall grade for the show. I felt that there was a lot of great exclusive content for the Nintendo Switch 1, Nintendo Switch 2 that's coming over. And I think that that's important for a system, to have exclusive games overall, to have announcements like Fire Emblem, to have stuff when it comes to the new Yoshi game or Mario Tennis. Of course, you know, to date release games, because people were getting kind of antsy with that. So Metroid Prime, Hades, Kirby, Hyrule Warriors, Pokemon Legends, Super Mario Galaxy, whatever the case is. Like, this Direct had a lot of variety of different things, but I think it was probably missing just that one more big thing to kind of push it into like an A+ type of Nintendo Direct. So for me, I thought it was a very solid Nintendo Direct. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a very solid, good grade, and that is a B. I think it was a solid B. 8 out of 10. There was a lot of new reveals when it comes to Mario Tennis and Yoshi and Fire Emblem, and there was also dates for a lot of stuff. The pacing could have been a little bit better at times, and like I said, it could have used one more kind of big thing when it comes down to it, but I think overall it was a solid Nintendo Direct, and there was a lot of games that were detailed, and the Nintendo Switch 2 has a lot of exclusives coming out for, or more like console exclusives when it comes to the different games. They're packing multiple months full of games, and you got to give it a little bit of credit for that as well, because I'm a believer when it comes to first-party developer, first-party company, Nintendo making exclusive content for the systems. I want to see that. I want to see the competition when it comes to Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, so I'm kind of more of a fan of that. So when you announce exclusives and you announce games you can only get on Nintendo hardware, I have no real big problem with that, as it's their content. But what do you guys think overall? What is your overall score for the Nintendo Direct? What were your favorite things about it? What did you not like about it? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.